Emily had always been the quiet girl in her small Oregon town. She walked through life like a shadow, never wanting to draw attention, preferring the company of books and the occasional late-night coffee at the corner cafe. But Daniel was different. He was bright, outgoing, and the kind of person who could light up any room. From the moment they met in high school, Emily had felt a pull toward him, an unspoken connection that she never dared to acknowledge. Daniel had been her best friend, her confidant, the one person who could make her laugh even on the darkest days. But after graduation, he had left for New York to chase his big dreams. He had promised he'd stay in touch, but life had its way of drifting people apart. Emily told herself she understood. He had opportunities she could never offer, but a small part of her had always held on to hope. For years, she tried to fill the emptiness he left behind. She focused on her work at the small bookstore her family owned and immersed herself in stories of love, adventure, and courage. She watched people around her fall in love and get married, and she clung to the thought that maybe, someday, life would give her a second chance. But every time she imagined that, Daniel was always there, smiling, laughing, just a little out of reach. It was a rainy Thursday evening when Emily finally decided she could no longer keep her feelings bottled up. She sat by the window in the bookstore, the dim light reflecting off the puddles outside, and pulled out her phone. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard, trembling. She typed a message she had rehearsed countless times in her mind, erased it, and typed it again. Each word felt like a confession of her soul. Daniel, I've kept this inside for too long. I don't know if you'll ever feel the same, and I know you're far away, living the life you've always wanted, but I need to tell you, I've loved you for years. I think about you every day, and I always have. I understand if you don't feel the same, but I couldn't let another day pass without telling you. I miss you. She read it over once more, her heart pounding. Her thumb hovered over the send button. What if he ignored it? What if he had moved on? What if she ruined the memory of their friendship forever? But then she thought about all the years of wondering, of imagining, what if, and realized she couldn't live with the regret anymore. With a deep breath, Emily pressed send. A small click echoed in the quiet bookstore, and suddenly the world seemed bigger, emptier, and yet lighter all at once. She whispered to herself, goodbye, Daniel, and maybe, hello, too. She didn't expect a reply. She didn't expect anything. For the first time, Emily allowed herself to feel vulnerable, to admit that she wanted something more than friendship, something real. As the rain tapped against the window, she watched the droplets slide down the glass, each one carrying away a little bit of her fear. That night, Emily went home, curled up with her favorite novel, and tried to sleep. But her mind kept wandering to the message she had just sent. She didn't know if Daniel would come back into her life or if she had just let go of her last chance. Either way, she felt a strange mixture of hope and fear, hope that maybe, just maybe, love could finally find its way back to her, and fear of what the answer might bring. Days passed, each one longer than the last. Emily tried to keep herself busy, organizing the bookstore shelves, helping customers, and reading, but her mind kept drifting back to Daniel. She checked her phone constantly, hoping for a notification, a message, anything that might tell her he had read her words and, miraculously, felt the same. But nothing came. By the middle of the week, Emily began to accept what she had feared all along. Maybe Daniel had moved on, maybe she had wasted the courage it took to confess her feelings. Still, she couldn't shake the restless hope that lingered like a fragile spark in her heart. She walked the streets of her hometown in the evenings, hoping to find distraction in familiar sights, the little cafe where they once shared milkshakes, the park where they had spent countless summer afternoons, but everything reminded her of him. Then, on a bright Saturday afternoon, as Emily was arranging a new display of novels, she heard the low rumble of a car engine outside the store. She didn't pay much attention at first. Deliveries were common, and tourists sometimes wandered in, curious about the town. But then she looked up. Her heart stopped. A sleek black car was parked in front of the bookstore. And stepping out of it was Daniel. He looked different, more mature, taller, and more confident, but his familiar smile and those hazel eyes instantly melted the years of distance. He carried a small suitcase, and his posture suggested he had just arrived from a long journey. Emily froze behind the counter, unable to move, her breath catching in her throat. Daniel's gaze met hers. A flicker of recognition crossed his face, quickly followed by warmth. Emily. he said softly, almost as if he couldn't believe she was real. His voice was the same, but it carried a depth she hadn't heard before, a mixture of longing and relief. Daniel, she stammered, her hands trembling as she clutched the edge of the counter. I didn't expect. He smiled gently. I got your message, he said, holding up his phone. I've read it over and over. I didn't know how to respond before. I didn't want to rush things or say something I didn't truly mean. But, I'm here now. Emily's heart leapt, a rush of emotions flooding her, relief, happiness, disbelief, and something deeper she couldn't yet name. You came back. She whispered, almost afraid that saying it aloud might shatter the fragile reality before her. I did, he replied. He stepped closer, leaving just a few feet between them, his eyes never leaving hers. I realized that being away from you, even for a day, felt wrong. I thought I was chasing my dreams, but I finally understood that success meant nothing if I couldn't share it with you. Tears pricked Emily's eyes, but this time they weren't of sorrow, they were of hope. Daniel had returned. He wasn't lost. He hadn't forgotten. The boy she had loved from afar was standing in front of her, and the impossible now felt real. For a moment, the bustling world outside faded. The rain earlier in the week had cleared, leaving sunlight glinting off the puddles, casting reflections that danced across the store's wooden floors. It felt as if time itself had paused to witness this reunion, the beginning of a new chapter neither of them had dared to imagine. Emily's hands were still trembling as she stepped closer to Daniel, trying to process the reality of him standing there. After years of imagining this moment in her dreams, it was finally happening, but it was more intense, more real, than she could have ever expected. The small bookstore around them felt suspended in time, each dust motes glinting in the sunlight like tiny stars celebrating their reunion. Daniel took a deep breath and finally spoke, his voice steady but gentle. Emily, I need to tell you the truth. When I left for New York, I thought I knew what I wanted. I thought I was chasing my dreams, building a life for myself. But in all that time, there wasn't a single day I didn't think of you. Emily's heart raced, a mixture of relief and anticipation making her chest feel tight. She had imagined him missing her, of course, but hearing him say it aloud made it feel undeniably real. I never stopped hoping you'd notice me, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Daniel smiled, a mixture of regret and warmth in his expression. You didn't need to hope anymore. I read your message, the one you sent me. I read it over and over before I could even respond. And Emily, it changed everything. I realized that being away from you, even for a few hours, made me understand what really mattered in life. I wasn't living, I was surviving without you. Emily felt tears welling in her eyes. She had waited for this moment for so long, never daring to believe it would happen. And now, standing face to face with Daniel, she felt years of longing dissolve into the present, into the warmth of his presence. I thought, maybe you deserved someone better, Daniel continued, his voice catching slightly. I didn't want to burden you with someone who was chasing a dream across the country, someone who might fail. But I realize now that love isn't about being perfect or having the perfect life. It's about being together, even when life isn't perfect. It's about taking chances, Emily. Her tears fell freely now, streaming down her cheeks. She reached out, taking his hand in hers. I don't care about perfection, she whispered. I just want you, here. With me. Daniel gently brushed a strand of hair from her face, his thumb caressing her cheek. And that's why I came back. I couldn't imagine living my life without you in it. You've always been the one I wanted, Emily. Always. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the weight of years of unspoken feelings settling around them. The past, with all its missed opportunities and unspoken words, no longer mattered. What mattered was now, this moment, and the promise of a future they could finally build together. Emily felt a smile spread across her face through her tears, a mixture of disbelief and overwhelming joy. So, this is real? She asked, her voice trembling. Daniel nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. It's real, he said simply. And it's just the beginning. And in that small bookstore in Oregon, surrounded by the scent of old pages and sunlight streaming through the windows, Emily realized that sometimes, love doesn't fade. Sometimes, it waits. And sometimes, it comes back exactly when it's meant to. The evening air was crisp as Emily and Daniel stepped outside the bookstore, their hands intertwined. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow over their small Oregon town, turning the streets into a tapestry of warm light and long shadows. For Emily, it was as if the world had been waiting just for this moment. Every heartbeat, every quiet longing of the past, had led her here. They walked slowly, side by side, past the little cafe where they had spent countless afternoons sharing milkshakes and stories, past the park where they had once raced each other as teenagers. Daniel's grip on her hand was steady, reassuring, and Emily felt a surge of courage. She realized that the fear that had kept her silent for years was gone. Now, all that remained was hope and a sense of belonging she had never known before. "Daniel," she said softly, breaking the comfortable silence, "I never thought this would actually happen. I was so scared you'd never come back." He smiled, his eyes reflecting the warm glow of the sunset. "I thought I knew what I wanted," he admitted. "But the truth is, life felt empty without you. I couldn't imagine chasing my dreams in New York if it meant leaving you behind. You're the reason I came back. You're the reason I want to build a life here." Emily's heart swelled. "A life here?" she asked, trying to hide the trembling excitement in her voice. "Yes," Daniel said. "I've decided not to go back to New York. I want to start fresh, here. With you. We can build something together, no rushing, no distance, no doubts. Just us." The words made Emily's eyes water. She had dreamed of this, imagined it late at night in the quiet corners of her room, but now it was real. The love she had whispered into a message had brought him back, and now he was offering a future she had never dared to hope for. They wandered to the park, sitting on the swing set where they had once played as teenagers. The memories mingled with the present, the laughter, the long talks, the small touches that had always meant more than words. Daniel swung gently beside her, his hand brushing hers, their fingers entwined. "Emily," he said, turning to face her, "I don't want to waste another moment. You are my home. You've always been my home." Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she laughed through them, a sound of relief and joy. "In your mind," she whispered. "I've waited so long, but it was worth it." As the first stars appeared in the evening sky, they sat together in comfortable silence, holding hands and watching the town they both loved. Emily realized that love wasn't about perfect timing or grand gestures. Sometimes, it was about bravery, honesty, and the courage to speak from the heart. That night, under the gentle glow of streetlights and the twinkling stars above, Emily and Daniel began their new life together. The world felt wider, warmer, and infinitely more beautiful than ever before. The years of longing, fear, and silence had led them here, to a love that was steadfast, true, and finally theirs. And so, what once seemed like an impossible dream had transformed into a perfect beginning, proving that love, when nurtured and awaited, always finds its way back.